Welcome to Money Talk with Tiff, a podcast where we discuss everything money from tips and tricks to current events. Follow me on my journey to become debt-free and meet other cool people along the way. I am your host, Tiffany Grant. Now let's talk money. All right, so I'm super excited about today's episode. I have Amelia Roberts. Now, Amelia is a digital native who officially became a practitioner of online marketing about 12 years ago with a role as a virtual assistant. One thing led to another, and now alongside other hats, she works as a visibility expert and digital marketing consultant. In this role, Amelia helps under-recognized professionals become thought leaders by skipping the maddening Facebook ads, sales funnels, and algorithm changes and goes straight for online collaborative partners, such as podcast hosts, bloggers, and people who already have the know, like, and trust of thousands of supporters. So thank you so much, Amelia, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I've listened to a couple of your episodes, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So we'll get right into it because I feel like you have a very, I'm just excited about what you have to talk about today. So I'll just let you go ahead and start. I mean, I love that Amelia, she helps people recognize their value. And to me, that's super important, especially as an entrepreneur. So Amelia, how do we recognize our value and make sure that we get what we're worth in the marketplace?
So how to make sure we get what we're worth. So I will back up a little bit and talk about how I came to the point of realizing I had value. Because it's just a conversation that can be kind of challenging to have when we talk about, how to, get your value when you're not quite sure if you have it. And I started out as an under-recognized employee. I was in a regulated industry where there were millions who did what I did. And I came to a point where I needed to do something different in order to earn income. And just working an extra shift was not an option for me for a variety of reasons. And that's when I started to go into online entrepreneurship. And I found that there were people who were charging, who were virtual assistants, some people were charging $7 an hour to do a task. Others were charging $75, $100 an hour to do the same task. And my wheel started turning, and I just started to see this gap and saw the possibilities and wondered why some people could charge and ask for $1,000 for a project, yet others couldn't. And so really, it really comes down to you being certain of the value that you offer before you can request that it be respected and recognized. If you don't feel as though you have any value to offer, if you feel as though you're worth about, $20 an hour, that's what you'll ask for and that's what you'll get. If you feel as though you're worth $20 an hour and you ask for 100, that's just going to be a hard conversation for one to have if you don't feel like you deserve it. And, it probably won't be recognized because you're going to have all sorts of hesitancy and weirdness about your voice as you ask for something you don't feel like you deserve. I feel like I'm going off track, but it really goes back to you knowing for sure what your value is.
Right. And, it's interesting you say that because I personally struggle with that as an entrepreneur. When I first started Money Talk with Tiff, I was pricing myself super low when it came to the individual coaching and everything. And as the years have gone by, I've increased. But I'm like, Tiffany, you were worth what you're charging now, if not more, way back then. So I know a lot of my audience are entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs, and it is a real struggle. The impostor syndrome is real.
It is. And as I mentioned in my communications with you before this, is that imposter syndrome is real, and more people and, people of color are impacted a little differently by that, just by way of society's messages that tells us what our value is. Society tells us that our value is different as women, that our value is different than men. Society tells us that our value is different than women of the majority, as women of color. And so we have those additional messages in our context, along with the typical imposter syndrome that other women of the majority also have. We just have this additional context. And, and that context is seen. I can give you the link. There is a Black Enterprise article, the state of Black women in business, that states how while a lot of, women of color are entering business, the earned average revenues equate to poverty levels within the United States. And it talks about an annual revenue of $24K versus over $100K among all women business owners. So the gap is real. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would definitely want to read that article. And I will put it in the show notes because that sounds very interesting. I mean, I can just speak for instance, I used to be in HR, and I would try to coach people on how to ask for that raise or how to ask for that promotion. And, women in general are typically scared to ask for more, and especially Black women and other minority women. It's just, and I had to get over that myself. You try to fit into this mold, like this is what I'm supposed to do, don't speak up too loud or you'll, be considered having an attitude or, something like that. And really, we need to start using our voice more and ask for those raises, ask for what you're worth, because if you don't, nobody's going to give it to you.
And that's awesome that you do that. And yeah, I agree with you. And this is where models outside of your family might be needed. I was listening to one of your episodes where you were talking about financial role models, lack of financial role models. And I too share that with you. And I resonated with that when I heard you say that. And the same can be true when it comes to asking for raises and money. Many of us may not have those sort of career role models handy. And so there's definitely a need for us to seek out examples from other people that might be outside of our family. Thanks to the internet, there's millions of, people who look like us who have examples of literally what they did, what they said, how they got from point A to point B. You can listen to their podcasts. You can binge on their YouTube channels. You can look at their Facebook lives. Examples of what this looks like is everywhere if we choose to look. But yeah, I know I didn't wake up, I didn't wake up like that either,
Exactly.
So,
I mean,
yeah, you have to definitely had to grab, examples from elsewhere for me personally.
exactly. And you just learn from experience. It was just one point where I was just tired of making what I was making. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go in there, say what I want. And if they give it to me, good. If they don't, then I need to start looking elsewhere. And I just had to put my foot down that one day. This is ridiculous. And I mean, doing that takes a lot of courage because a lot of people are scared to lose their job as well.
Yeah. And I like that you had your enough is enough point and you recognize that. I feel as though many of us have these enough and is enough points, but we don't stand up for ourselves. We don't save ourselves. We don't come through for ourselves. And that act of not coming through for ourselves, that teaches us to not trust ourselves. And that kind of goes back into the lack of requesting our value be recognized. If we can't trust ourselves, why would we invest in ourselves if we, can't show up and we can't save ourselves from horrible work situations? So it's awesome that you came, that you found that courage. So question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Where did you find that courage to, stand up for, your enough is enough point?
It's all part of research, right? Because the more you know, the more you can leverage what you know, right? So, I was researching this job title that I had. How much do people in this market where I live get paid for doing the exact same thing that I'm getting paid to do? And when I looked at that, I realized that I was way below what I was supposed to be making. And see, that's one of the ways I coach people, into doing asking for promotions and raises is make sure you do your research ahead of time. So that way, when you go into that meeting with that supervisor or that HR person or, the owner of the company, in my case, you have all of your ducks in a row. Because when you start hitting them with stats and numbers, like there's not much they can say after that.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen something similar work in the entrepreneur space, stats and numbers too with, so I honestly did not know when I was first introduced to virtual assistants and working from home, doing administrative tasks and marketing. It was people who were kind of charging like $20 an hour. And then the folks who were specialized and the virtual assistants who were making $100K a year plus came into my world. And that just opened up a new world of possibilities. Like, oh, wow. It really is about knowing what is common in the market and what is common in which markets.
Mm-hmm.
There are markets of 7 to 8 figure online business owners who are out there. They exist. There's more than a couple of them.
Right.
There are high 6-figure earners too. There's more than a few out there who have teams of people, and yes, they are paying their teams well because they're making like $1,000 to $2,000 an hour or something like that. So sure, they're happy to pay someone $75 an hour to take care of something versus them doing it.
Absolutely.
But what you said, researching and seeing what's out there is where it starts, to know where to even talk about.
Absolutely. And another thing I feel like helps you with your value is surrounding yourself with people um, that you look up to. So, for instance, I know my career coach, she introduced this concept of the circle of 5. So the 5 people that are closest to you, you're bound to mirror those 5 people. So she was like, okay, Tiffany, how much do you want to make a year? No limit. And I was like, no limit? Let's go ahead and say 6 figures. Now, at this time, I was only making like $10 an hour. So to me, that was big. So I'm like, let's say 100,000 a year. She's like, okay, well, everybody that you're surrounding yourself is nowhere near that. So like you need to change your circle, start interacting with people that are already there. So that way you can see how they did it and how, kind of mirror that new circle. Now, that's not saying get rid of your friends, but also surround yourself with other people that you admire and that are already where you want to be.
Yes. And that can also, and again, that's so important for those of us who didn't necessarily grow up with these folks in our circle. And like how these people are like in our circle. I know that this can vary. Like for me, at first it started with listening to podcasts. I'm listening to podcasts of people who I needed to be around. And that sort of gave me ideas. And by listening to them, they set a new standard of normal of what was to be expected in terms of value and asking for money. That formed my new expectation. And then, I did start to have, in my personal network, people that I networked with in real life, people who also share that same value. And that helped me recalibrate my norms.
Right. And that's super important as well. Like, it doesn't have to be people in person. Like today, 2 people virtually that you can look up to, me and Amelia. Like, you know what I mean? So, it doesn't mean that you have to have people like in your town. Like, these can be people from all over the country, all over the world. And that's the beauty of the internet. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit. And I want to hear, because I know a little bit about your story, but I want to hear how you were able to get $1,000 in one day, because that just stood out to me.
Yeah. So again, mindset work. This took a long time to even feel like, hey, I can ask for that because, again, if you ask and you don't feel as though you deserve, you're not going to get it. People tend to reflect things that make sense. And if it doesn't make sense for you, you'll be telling something with somebody and you'll have a question mark all over your face and they'll look at you crazy. And, it's just not, it just doesn't work out well. So in any case, I started listening to people who did, so what I was offering was done for you outreach, helping somebody to get on podcasts, blog posts, and Facebook group of their best buyers so that they could be in front of hundreds and thousands of new people on a weekly basis. And I knew the value of their product. Their product was worth, and actually I underpriced now that I'm talking about it, but no matter. This is a conversation. We're being transparent.
Exactly.
And so that was the plan, to get them in front of influencers who had the know, like, and trust of their best buyers. The product that he was selling was close to $1,000. And I figured, with all of this, he'd at least be able to move one product. So let me charge $1,000. Upon doing further research, I found other companies who offer a similar sort of direct outreach, outbound client acquisition program. And their prices are, around $4,000 a month, because, you put people in front of hundreds and thousands of people who want to buy. And if their products are 1K plus, it sort of works out well in their interest. But anyway, $1,000 is what I had the confidence to charge at that point. And so anyway, I was in actually a Facebook group and I pitched that to the gentleman, and I said, hey, I'd like to offer, a service related to outreach, getting you on podcasts, blogs, blah, blah, blah. And he said, let's talk. And we talked, and he said, well, name a price that would feel comfortable to you. And I felt comfortable with only $1,000 at the time. And he said, yes. And, that same day I had, $1,000 in my bank account. So that was an amazing moment. It was the first time that happened for me, and it really opened my eyes to what's possible.
Nice. Hashtag goals. I would love to make $1,000 in a day. And I know the time is coming. But that is so inspirational. Just ask. The worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
And then if they say no, you just move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And what helps, to build up to those asks of, and I know there's people out there who've, gotten 10K in one day, but what builds up to these asks are smaller asks. I've asked for $97. I've asked for $297. I've asked for $300. I've asked for $500. And so once, I got the 97, that gave me confidence to ask for the 200, that gave me confidence to ask for the 3 and then the 5. So, nothing happens overnight. I want people to know, but you do have to get in the practice of knowing what you're worth, and then asking, or I would like to say inviting people to recognize your value, but inviting people to recognize your value with confidence.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Amelia. That was a wonderful discussion and very much needed, especially for the audience that I have. So where can they find you?
Sure. So I have a blog, well, actually a few places. So first, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. That is a place where I hang out the most. People are in a business frame of mind. They're used to talking about business and thinking about business and such, and that's who I prefer to hang out with. I am also on Facebook. I'll give you my links afterwards. And I have a website, Solutions by Amelia. Solutionsbyamelia.com. You'll see testimonials of people that I've been able to help get visible and get in front of audiences and get clients and such. And I also it's a long story, I have a background in healthcare, and I love helping people see the other ways they can use their degree in healthcare to do different things. So I have a blog for that as well called thebusinessofnursing.com.
Oh, wow. So I counted 2 blogs. There's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's Instagram. I'll have all those links available in the show notes because Amelia is someone you want to keep in contact with. So thank you so much. That was wonderful. And I look forward to having you back on the show again.
Awesome. I look forward to staying in touch, Tiffany. Take care.
You too. Thank you for listening to the Money Talk with Tiff podcast. For free resources and materials, head over to moneytalkwitht.com. And while you're there, why not sign up for our newsletter so you'll never miss an episode? Talk to you soon.